this demo, I'm going to be gathering information about a user's computer. One of our end users is reporting some slowness on their system and general weird behavior. So I'm going to look at some common pieces of information like system memory, BIOS version, and the last reboot time. This will give us an idea if one of these areas may be needed to be looked at by a desktop support technician. I'll be using WMI as well as some other commands to gather the info. You'll notice I've listed the commands I'll be using in this demo, so you have that as a reference. You'll see that on all of the intro demo slides throughout the rest of this module. So I'm on my client computer here. So first what I want to do is I want to take a look at the committed memory on this system. If too much memory is in use and being committed, it can have an effect on the performance for users and their applications. To see this, I need to access the memory counters that are part of the performance monitoring in Windows. So to do that through PowerShell, I'm going to go to my PowerShell console that we have open here. And then I'm going to use a get- command. And then I'm going to search for commands related to counter. So as you can see here, we have a number of counters. And I'm guessing that the get-counter is going to allow me to pull counters. So let's try typing in get-counter. When we put that in, we see what that actually brings back for us is all of the counter samples that we have. So we see a number of different ones there. So for processor, percent processor time, that is a good one for when we're looking at how much time the processor is using. We see memory percent committed bytes in use. That's actually the one that we're looking for, but I'm going to show you how to get through there and get directly at that one. Then we'll see some other ones for physical disk as well. So it shows all of the four major components for your hardware. So let's go down here and I'm going to do a get-counter, and then I'm going to use the parameter of list set, which allows me to list all of the counter sets. So all of the sets of counters that are available on the system. So I'm going to put in wildcard memory wildcard. We'll hit enter. So notice that brings up all of the different ones. And then we see here the counter set of memory. That is the one that we're really interested in, that has the information that we're looking for. So we'll go back down here. We'll use that same command, list set, and then I'm going to put that into a where. I can use where instead of where-object. That's just a way of shortening it. And then I'm going to put in here where counter set name, which is the property that I'm looking for, is equal to memory, which was the name of that counter set name. So it brings back that counter set, so the same thing that we saw above there. So what we're interested in are the paths to that counter. So what I want to do is I want to select out the path from there. So we'll do an up arrow, brings back our command. So now we're going to put that into select, which is short for select-object. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a parameter called expand. What expand will do is it'll expand out this path. So notice here at the end, there's 3 dots, which means that it's truncated and we don't see the entire thing. So we want to see the entire contents of that paths property. So I'm going to do expand paths and we'll put enter. So now it brings for us all of the different paths that are available. So I'm going to simply type in here get-counter, and then I'll put in the name of the counter, which is /memory /% committed bytes in use. And we'll see that it errored out. The specified counter could not be found. And notice that it'll always put where it errors out as far as the line and the character. So that's a good way of telling what the problem is. So if I look at my command, the problem is I didn't put a space right here. So we'll go ahead and select that. So notice now that gives us the percentage for that committed bytes in use. So we know that about a little under 15% is in use. So if I want to take a look at actually the amount of physical memory on the system, I can use a get sim instance, which allows me to access the WMI sim classes, and I can put in physical memory, and it will show me all of the properties of the physical memory that are in there. So it'll tell me the bank that it's in, and then the capacity here. And then I could use math and I can convert this to gigabytes from bytes that it is. So that's how we would work with the memory. So say we want to take a look at the amount of free disk space on the system. So the easiest way to do that is to go back to the get-sim class commandlet, which allows me to look at all of the classes that are available. So if I do a class name and then I put in disk, what this is going to pull for me is all of the sim classes related to disk. So you see there's a number of them that are win32 underscore and then some that are sim. And you'll see here we've got a sim underscore logical disk and a win32 underscore logical disk. They basically do about the same things. They're just accessing them in a slightly different way, one utilizing the sim and the other using WMI. So let's take a look at pulling up the get. We'll do a WMI object. So this is using the pre-version 3 commandlet. If I put in property, I put in win32 underscore logical disk. Oh, so we'll do that over again. Get WMI object, and I actually want to put the class in there. That's what the win32 logical disk is. And that brings back all of the logical disks. So you see there's at the top, we've got A, C, and D. Those are all actually logical volumes on my physical disks. And the other ones you can see have a provider name of a UNC path. Those are mapped drives that I have on my system. So you see my C drive here, we see the amount of free space and then the size. So that'll give you an idea of how much free space is on the system, which is often one of the things that we look for as well. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take a look at what system BIOS is on the system that we're connecting to. So we want to make sure that it's up to the latest version that we have to make sure that that isn't an issue. So what I can do is I can do the get sim class. And I can put in BIOS to search for any classes related to BIOS. So we see we've got a win32 underscore BIOS. So that's the one we're going to work with. So I'm going to do I'm going to do get WMI object win32 BIOS, and it pulls back our BIOS information. We see our manufacturer name, serial number, version level as well. So let's see what happens when we do the get sim instance for the same class. Put in win32 underscore BIOS. Notice with the sim instance, I can actually use tab complete to go through my classes, which is another reason that makes that easier to use. Notice we get the same information. So if I want to just see the property name and then the version, what I can do is I can put that into a select and then do name, version, and it brings me back those pieces of information. So you see we're moving from left to right, we're gathering our information, then we're selecting information from it, and then we could do something with the information on the other end. The last thing we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at the last time the system had a reboot. And the easiest way to see this is to look for a system event and event viewer ID number 1074. So this signifies the system has had a restart. So let's look for commands. So if I do a GCM, that's a get-command, that's the alias for it, that have something to do with event. So we see a number of different ones. We see the commandlet for get-event log. So I'm going to take a look at the help for get-event log. Spelled that wrong. And we see that this gets events and event logs on local and remote computers. So you can actually use the dash computer name to use this remotely. So if we go through and do a dash examples, it shows us different examples of how we can work through this. So I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here because this number 9 here, that's kind of the one we're going to use. We want to get logs from the system, and then we're going to find the ones that have an event ID equal to the 1074. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and to make typing a little bit easier, I simply going to copy this code in here that I had set up previously. We're doing a get event log where the log is system, and we're getting the newest 1000 events. So it's looking through the last 1000 events. Then we're doing a where object where the event ID is equal to 1074. So from that output, it's going to simply pull out all of the event IDs equal to 1074 and give me those events. Then what I'm doing is I'm using a format dash table to format that so that the only thing I'm getting are the machine name, the username, and the time generated, and then I'm auto sizing it. So we'll click enter there to see what that gets for us. And we'll see it brings back, those are the last 3 times that my system rebooted. So I know that on the 27th I did a reboot, and even though we don't normally want to just go, hey, you should reboot your system, it's good to know when the last reboot occurred. So since it's been a while, I might tell my end user, hey, maybe reboot your system to see if that improves things, and we can continue looking at information and gathering information. So those are a number of ways to gather information on computer and hardware.